Don't talk to her, a senior maid hissed, grabbing Leah's wrist. But the child by the window lifted her head at the sound of music. Her eyes flickered with a longing that didn't match her silence. Then the girl whispered the words everyone else pretended not to hear. "Will you dance with me?" The entire staff turned away, terrified of what would happen next. Watch until the end to see how this incredible story unfolds, and let us know what time you're watching today. "Dance with me," Leah said, and her voice trembled more from fear than courage. She had only been in the house 3 hours. The place smelled of lemon polish and old leather. Marble steps rose like a stage. Men in suits moved fast and carefully. The other staff kept their eyes down. No one touched the girl by the window. Naomi sat with her back to the room. She rocked a little. Her fingers traced the edge of a small silver music box on her lap. The box was scratched and dull, but when the lid clicked, Naomi hummed like a bird. People pretended not to hear. Leah wore a plain uniform and a name tag. She needed this job. Her brother's medicine cost more than her last paycheck. She felt small in the big kitchen, but she could not stand watching a child be invisible. Her heart beat hard. What if she asked and the family laughed? What if the CEO, Raymond, scolded her? Naomi did not look at Leah. The room held its breath. Would she say yes? Leah woke before dawn in a tiny room above a bakery. The street down below still smelled of yeast. She tied her hair back, counted the coins in her pocket, and tucked a photograph of her little brother, Aaron, into her apron. Aaron smiled from the photo. He needed a new inhaler and a medicine that was $200 more than Leah earned in a week. Leah had taken jobs before. Cleaning was honest work. But this house was different. It was quiet like a museum, with rules you could feel in the air. On her first morning, Leah learned the rhythm of the house fast. Breakfast for the adults at 8. Naomi's songs at 10. The papers folded in the study at 9:30. The staff moved like a single machine. Jerome, the butler, was the engine, precise, unreadable. Maria, an older maid, moved like a shadow down the hallway. She smiled once at Leah, but her eyes warned, "Don't be reckless." The family lived behind tall glass that showed a garden and nothing else. Outside, the city hummed. Inside, everything was polished to a sore shine. Leah's uniform felt new and wrong. Her hands smelled of lemon, and her throat felt tight. Naomi sat by the window with the music box on her lap. Leah watched her from the kitchen doorway. Naomi's hair fell like a curtain. She did not look at people. She hummed the same melody while she opened and closed the box. The tune was small and stubborn, like a child's promise. Leah reached out one step and stopped. The music box became something in Leah's mind. It was more than metal and scratches. It kept Naomi steady. When the lid clicked, Naomi's shoulders eased. When it was silent, Naomi would press her forehead to the lid and close her eyes. The box was the room's secret center. Leah had a small secret too. When she was young, she had learned to dance with her mother for street shows. They could make small feet move and make a crowd clap. Leah never told anyone this in the new life. Dancing felt like bravery and shame in one breath. It was a thing that belonged to a past where bills were smaller and laughter came easier. The staff watched Leah differently than the family did. Jerome nodded once at her, as if testing whether she understood rules. Maria washed plates and told Leah, low and fast, how the house liked everything calm. "Never talk to the guests unless they speak first," Maria whispered. "Keep your hands where they belong." Claire, the CEO's wife, floated through the rooms like a soft wind. She smiled at Leah as if deciding whether Leah could be trusted. Claire's hands touched nothing. Her wedding ring glinted heavily. Raymond, the CEO, was a shadow with a sharp smile. He raised his voice when stock numbers fell and lowered it when his daughter smiled. To the rest of the world, Raymond was a man who solved problems. At home, his answers were careful and small. Leah learned Naomi's small routine. Before the staff served tea, Naomi would open the music box. Then she would walk the blue rug with precise steps, stopping at exactly 3 marks on the floor. The house had made these marks for her. People pretended not to notice. The adult guests sat and looked at glass and spoke of projects. They did not speak of Naomi. At lunch, Leah brought plates through the dining room. Naomi hummed in the corner. A speaker in the ceiling played soft jazz. A guest asked Raymond about a project and Raymond said, "We'll close it by Friday." The guest laughed and the room moved on. Naomi's humming fell under the words like a thin thread. Leah's hands trembled when she set Naomi's plate. Naomi did not look up. Her fingers went straight to the music box, and she kept humming. Leah remembered Aaron's laugh. She remembered how Aaron's face had gone white the night his medicine ran out. Leah's chest tightened. Her eyes met Maria's across the room. Maria looked away. That afternoon, Leah found a small fortune. While clearing a tray, she brushed a nickname from Naomi's chair, a tiny sticker shaped like a star. No one else saw it. Leah smiled and kept it in her pocket. It felt like a small key. Still, the staff's rules whispered in Leah's head. "Keep your distance," Jerome had said once. So soft, she almost thought she imagined it. Families like order, Maria had warned. What if she reached too far? What if she ruined everything for Aaron because she lost this job? At tea, a guest snorted at a joke and Claire smiled too quickly. Naomi tapped the music box, and her humming grew louder, then quieter. Leah stood near the doorway, hands folded, watching the way Naomi's small body held on to the tune. Leah did not go home that night. She sat in the cleaning room with her apron off and the photograph of Aaron in her palm. She thought of the music box and the way Naomi's lips moved. She felt a strange kind of courage grow like heat. If she asked Naomi to dance, would Naomi laugh? Would the family be angry? Or would Naomi tilt her head and come alive with a single step? Leah folded the photograph and put it back in her apron. The house slept around her like a giant with a small, beating heart. She decided she could not pretend she did not see Naomi anymore. What would happen if she tried? The next morning felt smaller than the day before. The house moved with the same slow machine rhythm. But something shifted like a door left ajar. Leah found a note tucked under the silver tray in the staff room. The handwriting was neat and clipped. It was from Claire. "Naomi is to remain in the blue room during formal events," it read. "Only family may speak to her. No visitors." Leah read it twice. Her stomach tightened. A formal dinner was set for Friday. Guests from Raymond's company would come. They would talk about money and plans. Naomi's little blue rug would be closed off. The music box would be put away. Leah folded the note and slid it into her apron like a hot coin. Leah watched Naomi all morning. Naomi did the same things. She opened the box. She walked 3 marks on the rug. She hummed. Naomi did not look at anyone who moved near her. She did not ask for a different life. But Leah felt a new ache when she imagined Naomi kept away like an ornament. Jerome found Leah standing near the window and said nothing at first. He cleared his throat and then used the quiet voice people used for rules. "Claire makes the schedule," he said. He did not look unkind. He only looked sure. Leah wanted to ask why. She did not. Maria came with a drying towel. "It's easier this way," she said. Her voice was low and flat. Less trouble. Less eyes on the house. She moved as if she had learned this at her bones. Leah thought of Aaron and his inhaler. She thought, too, of Naomi's fingers on the music box lid. At lunch, a guest named Mr. Hale laughed too loud about a charity they supported. "Charity for special kids," he said, and the men around the table nodded like it was safe speech. Good PR. Claire smiled. Her smile was thin. Naomi's humming went softer. Later, Claire asked Leah to bring Naomi's tea to the blue room. Her tone made the order clear. "Keep her calm," Claire said. "She tends to disturb guests." Her eyes flicked to Leah as if testing. Leah felt the word disturb like a cold finger. Naomi was not a disturbance. Naomi was a child. Leah carried the tea. Naomi sat perfectly on the rug. She did not glance up. She held the music box, but did not wind it. Her fingers trembled in a small way. Leah set the cup down and spoke without meaning to. "Do you want me to open it?" she asked. Naomi's hand still. Her head tilted. She did not say yes. She did not say no. She reached out and brushed Leah's sleeve with the tip of a finger. That small contact made Leah's heart jump. The room was full of whispering air. No one else watched. After the tea, Leah swept the hallway and found a crumpled drawing behind a plant pot. It was a child's scribble in bright crayon. A small figure stood beside a bigger one. The smaller figure held something like a star. On the bottom, in tiny careful letters, was the name Naomi. Leah smoothed the paper with both hands. The drawing felt like proof that Naomi lived inside the house and not behind glass. That afternoon, a new rule appeared on the staff board. No photos of Naomi. No conversation about her on social media. Leah's hands grew cold. Jerome pinned the rule with a thumb. "Company policy," he said. He looked at Leah longer than usual, and for a moment his face lost its blankness. He looked tired. "They are nervous about the board," he added. "They want the image clean." "You mean hide her?" Leah asked too loud. A plate clinked in the sink. Maria glanced up and then away. "Not hide," Jerome said. "Protect." Leah felt the difference in words like an argument you could not win. To Jerome, protection meant distance. To Leah, protection meant care. The house had one language for the family and another for the child. Naomi was being spoken about like a risk. That idea made Leah angry and afraid all at once. That night, as Leah scrubbed the silver, she heard voices through the pantry door. Mr. Hale spoke of donors and image. Claire said, "We can't have any confusion." Raymond's voice was softer. Leah could not catch everything, but one line struck like a stone. "It's bad for business," he said. There was no cruelty in his tone. It was a calm calculation. Leah's hand stilled over the rag. What would Naomi lose if she never walked into that dining room again? Would she shrink even smaller? Leah thought of Aaron's face when he gasped for air. She thought of the way Naomi's humming filled small spaces like light. A new plan began to form like a fragile thread. But the house had eyes. It had rules. It had men who spoke of donors. It had a command that came from the top. Leah felt the power line above her, thick and humming. She also felt the thin line that ran from Naomi to the music box, and she felt, suddenly, that she could not let that small line break. Would she try to hold it? Would she risk her job to keep Naomi seen? The answer clicked in her head like the lid of the music box. The dining room smelled like roses and money. Crystal glasses caught the light. Men in dark suits leaned forward and laughed at jokes about deals. Leah carried a tray with Naomi's small plate. Her hands were steady, but her heart jumped. Naomi sat on the blue rug with the music box hidden under her skirt. Claire had told the staff to keep it away during dinner. Naomi's fingers worried the hem of her dress. She hummed a little, as if the song lived under her skin. Leah set the plate and stayed near the doorway. The guests did not look at Naomi. They spoke of mergers and markets. Mr. Hale told a story and everyone laughed too loud. Leah felt a hard knot in her throat. She watched Naomi's small shoulders rise and fall with the tune she hummed. Halfway through the soup, a sharp sound cut the talk. A man at the far table, one Leah had not noticed before, let his watch slip and clang on the floor. It landed by Naomi's knee. For a second, nobody moved. The watch was a cheap thing, but it shone under the chandelier like a coin. Mr. Hale stopped laughing and pointed at Naomi. He smiled with his mouth and not his eyes. "Look," he said. "She has something." Naomi didn't say anything. She reached for the music box in a small, hidden move. The guests leaned back, polite faces folding into interest. Claire's hand went to her mouth. Raymond's jaw tightened. Leah saw Naomi's fingers close on the lid. Naomi's face was small and blank. Then Mr. Hale picked up the watch by Naomi's knee and held it up. "That belonged to me," he said. His voice was light. "It was on my table." He looked at Naomi like she was a puzzle. She must have taken it. He laughed, a quick sound. Whispers ran like ants. One guest said, "Oh my." Another pretended not to look. Jerome moved toward Naomi, but paused like a man caught by a rule. Maria's face went white. Naomi looked down at the watch in Mr. Hale's hand, and then at the music box under her skirt. She pressed the small box tighter to her body, like a secret. Her lips trembled. She made a soft sound, not a word, and that sound snapped something in the room. Claire stood up so fast her chair scraped. Her voice was thin and cold. "Naomi, give that back." She pointed like a judge. Naomi's hands did not move. She rocked a little. The room filled with an ugly quiet. Leah felt the color drain from her face. She wanted to step forward. She wanted to say, she can't help how she walks, how she hums, how the things fall near her. She wanted to hold Naomi's small shoulders and tell the adults they were wrong. Her feet would not move. Mr. Hale held the watch as evidence. "Someone must be watched," he said, and the words were clever. A man at the end of the table chuckled. "Bad optics," he added. People nodded. The phrase sounded like armor. Then Claire did something Leah never expected. She turned to the guests and smiled as if it were a costume. "We will have to be careful who we bring next time," she said. "We can't have confusion reflected back at us." Naomi's humming sped up. She made the small sound again. It was a thin bird sound, a kind of worry. A waiter reached for Naomi's small hand. He tried to lift the music box from her skirt. Naomi's body flinched. Her knees curled. The waiter's fingers grazed the lid, and it fell open. The tiny dancer inside spun and clinked. The melody was naked and bright in the room. For a second the music took the air and made it light. Naomi's face changed. She looked at the little figure inside the box and smiled in a way that looked like sunrise. Then Mr. Hale's smile snapped hard. He slammed the watch on the table and stood. "She tried to hide it," he said. His words landed like stones. Leah moved without meaning to. She stepped forward and caught Naomi's small hand in her palm. "No," Leah said. Her voice came out louder than she meant. All eyes turned. She didn't take anything. The room tilted. Raymond's face was hard. "Leah," he said. His voice was dangerous, but calm. "This is a private home. We expect discretion." Leah felt every face on her like a burn. A young intern at the end of the table looked shocked and then looked down. Maria looked away, tears in her eyes. Jerome's face was closed. Naomi pressed her head to Leah's hand like a bird finding a branch. Leah's own fingers shook. The music box still sang. What would you do? Leah thought, staring at the watch on the table and the man who held it like proof. She thought of Aaron coughing in the night without his medicine. She thought of the thin coin in her pocket and how she needed this job. Claire's voice slid through like ice. "We'll speak privately." Her eyes didn't meet Leah's. "Please leave Naomi now." Leah had a choice. Stay and fight and risk everything. Or leave and carry the look of that watch in her chest forever. She let go of Naomi's hand and turned. The staff room felt farther than it had ever felt before. The music box's tiny tune chased her down the corridor like a question. Outside, the city was loud and messy and honest. Inside the house, a new rule was being written in silence. Some people could be shown to the world, and some must be hidden. Leah walked away with the weight of the watch in her throat. The kitchen felt too small that night. Leah washed plates with slow, angry hands. The rhythm of the water could not wash the watch from her chest. Inside, the staff whispered, Maria had tucked herself away and scrubbed at a pan until her knuckles ached. Jerome closed the pantry and walked straight into the linen room like a man trying to hide. The intern, Samuel, lingered by the back door, staring at the floor as if it would open and swallow him. Leah wanted to shout. She wanted to tell the men at the table they had broken something in the room that could not be fixed with apologies. But she also needed this job. Aaron needed his medicine. The picture of him in her apron burned her palm like a promise. She could feel the two lines of her life pulling at each other. That night she did not sleep. She sat on the little cot above the bakery and made a list. The list was short and sharp. Show Naomi is not a thief. Find proof that the watch fell, not that Naomi took it. Get someone to notice the way Naomi works with the music box. Keep her job. Her first idea felt small and risky. If Mr. Hale's watch had really fallen near Naomi, someone must have seen where it landed. People notice small things when the room is quiet. Samuel might have seen. He had watched the room go still. He looked like a boy who wished he had spoken. The next morning Leah found Samuel carrying coffee for the interns. He was a soft young man with nervous hands. Leah waited until the china clattered in the back kitchen, and then she said, low enough that Maria would not hear, "Did you see the watch fall?" Samuel was startled. His face went white. He nodded, then shook his head. "I saw it hit the floor, but I thought Mr. Hale dropped it by the table," he said. I didn't think she could." He cut himself off. "Why not?" Leah asked. Her voice was steady. "What did you see?" Samuel looked at Naomi's closed door through the staff window. "It hit near her foot," he said in a rush. "It bounced. I think one of the guests nudged it with his leg. It wasn't her. I thought someone would say something." A small bolt of hope passed through Leah. "Will you tell Jerome?" she asked. Samuel swallowed. "He told us to leave family things to the adults." His voice was thin. "But I can tell the truth. I can say I saw it hit the floor." Leah considered the risk. Jerome disliked trouble. Jerome liked the house to seem perfect. But a single honest voice might make a crack. She made a plan that felt like the first step on a ladder. She would not shout in the dining room. She would not accuse Mr. Hale. Instead, she would gather small things that showed Naomi belonged in the house and was not a thief. She would find the sticker she had rescued. She would collect Naomi's drawings. She would ask Samuel to tell Jerome what he saw. She would ask Maria to look at the silverware when the guests arrived next time. Leah moved quietly. She pinned Naomi's star sticker where she could keep it. It felt like a talisman. She took a picture of the drawing and hid the scrap in her apron. Small proof, but proof that Naomi had been here all along. When she told Maria about Samuel, Maria frowned. "Danger," Maria said. She rubbed her thumb over the rag as if smoothing an old scar. "If Jerome thinks you stirred trouble, you'll be out. And Raymond will be worse." Leah's heart sank, but she kept her face calm. "What would you do?" she asked Maria softly. Maria looked at Naomi's door and then at Leah. For the first time, Leah saw something like courage in Maria's eyes. "I would keep the story small," Maria said. "No shouting. Just a quiet word to Jerome. Let him decide. He hates nonsense." The next morning Leah walked into the blue room with Naomi's tea and a small, quiet plan in her pocket. She paused at the doorway and breathed. Naomi sat with the music box in her lap. Leah put the drawing on the little table and let the edge stick out. Naomi glanced at the paper. Her fingers reached for it before she thought. Leah smiled and did not speak. The music box clicked open. Naomi hummed. At the end of the hall, Samuel came in with a stack of clean napkins. He looked at Leah and then at Jerome. Leah caught his eye and gave a tiny nod. He nodded back barely. Later, when the house was empty and the guests were gone, Samuel found Jerome in the pantry. Leah hid behind the coats and listened. She heard Samuel say the words slowly, like he was giving a confession. I saw it hit the floor by Naomi, Samuel said. It bounced. I thought someone would say. Jerome's voice was a low rumble. For a moment Leah thought he would scold the boy. Instead he sighed and rubbed his forehead. Good, he said. Thank you. That's better than silence. Leah felt her mouth open like she might laugh. Jerome walked slowly through the rooms with Samuel. He did not shout. He did not scold Leah. He simply made a small note in his book, a neat line that could be used later. Leah's chest eased a little. The small plan had a small result. It was not a victory. It was not an apology from the men at the table. But it was a crack in the wall. That night Leah sat with Naomi and taught her a small step. She had not danced in years, but the memory of her mother's hand guided her. Naomi did not smile at first. Then she reached for Leah's fingers and matched the step. They moved slowly. The music box's song filled the blue room. For a moment, the house felt like a place where something could be mended. Leah pressed the drawing into Naomi's hand and whispered, "You are not alone." Outside, the guests slept in hotels. Inside, the house held its breath. Leah had begun to fight with small things. Would that be enough? For a week the house felt quieter, as if it were waiting to see what would come next. The small victory came in pieces. Samuel kept his promise. He told Jerome exactly what he had seen. Jerome did not make a big scene. He simply wrote the note, closed his book, and the way he looked at Naomi changed a little. He stopped letting the waiters reach for her hands like they were snatching plates. He told the staff, quiet and sharp, "We do not humiliate children." It was not a speech. It was a line in the air. It was enough for some. Maria began to move differently too. She would leave an extra cup of cocoa by Naomi's door or tuck the music box under a cloth so Naomi could find it without fuss. Her hands, which once smelled only of soap and polish, now carried small acts of kindness like stacked plates. Leah watched Maria's face one evening while they folded linens. There were deep lines near Maria's eyes. She told Leah once, in a voice that sounded like she was confessing, "I had a boy once. He would hide behind my skirt when company came. I learned to look away." The words landed on Leah like a soft stone. Maria's secret made her seem smaller and larger at once. Naomi's small victories were quiet. She walked a little farther into the corridor without the ritual of the 3 marks. She opened the music box in the pantry, where sunlight spilled like sugar. One afternoon, Leah taught Naomi a new step, a turn that did not need music. Naomi tried it with tiny, careful feet, and then laughed a small, light laugh that surprised them both. It sounded like a bell. Leah felt it as if she were building a bridge with thumbtacks. Each small act held weight. She told Naomi softly about Aaron when they sat by the window. "My brother coughs at night," Leah said, and Naomi traced a line on the music box as if she heard every word. Naomi did not answer with words, but she tapped the lid 3 times and pressed her forehead to it. Leah felt seen in a new way. A small lightness warmed her chest. She wondered if kindness could become armor. But the shadow rose while they built those small things. Raymond had a meeting he could not miss. The board wanted reassurance. The next morning, Claire was not the only one who moved carefully. There was a man Leah had not met before, Mr. Grant, who came through the study with a folder and a cold smile. He was from the company's public relations team. He talked about image and donors and risk mitigation. He used words like a surgeon uses knives. "Children can be sensitive," Mr. Grant said, as if he were lecturing a class. "We must manage situations so they do not affect stakeholders." His voice was smooth and empty. Leah overheard him in the corridor. He spoke of options. He spoke of controlled appearances. He spoke of bringing in a specialist who would help Naomi adjust. Claire agreed, with a voice that had no edges. "We need to be careful," she said, "for Naomi's good and for the company." Jerome listened with his face to a closed book. He did not argue. He did not seem surprised. He only nodded in the way of men who have seen decisions go down from higher shelves and learned to accept their weight. Leah felt the thin bridge she had built wobble. The plan that sounded like help could become a wall. Adjust sounded like a polite erasure. The word made Leah's hands cold. A small micro-twist arrived from an unlikely corner. Mr. Hale, the man who had accused Naomi, spoke to Leah in the garden one morning. He was not the same blustering man from the dining room. The sun made his hair look younger. He cleared his throat and said unexpectedly, "I'm sorry. I spoke without thinking." The apology was short and awkward. He added, "I have a niece. She is like Naomi. I forgot." His voice cracked on the last line. Leah did not know whether to relax or brace. The apology did not change what had happened at the table, but it showed that people could surprise you. Why had he been cruel? Why had he been kind now? People had reasons that were not always visible. That night, Leah sat on her cot and counted coins again. Aaron's inhaler was still too expensive. The house hummed above her like a machine she was not allowed to touch. She had a small victory. Naomi smiled more. She had small allies, Samuel and Maria, and, oddly, a soft word from Mr. Hale. She also had a new fear. The company's team wanted to move Naomi into a different life, one controlled by specialists and schedules. If that happened, Leah might lose the quiet hours when she and Naomi danced in the pantry. Leah imagined a future where Naomi was always kept safe behind an adult's plan. Would Naomi be safer? Or would she be made invisible in a different way? She tightened her fingers around a thumbnail until it hurt. "What would you do?" she whispered into the dark, but louder this time. The question was not for the house. It was for anyone who might be listening. Would you fight a slow, polite erasure or accept a quiet safety? Tell me, would you speak up? The answer did not come. The house did not give a quick victory. It gave small proofs and larger threats. Leah closed her eyes and made a new list in the dark. The next step had to be bolder than a note from Samuel. The next step had to be a plan that could not be filed away by a man with a folder. Leah did something she had never done before. She opened Naomi's little drawer. It was late. The house was quiet in the way big houses keep secrets. No steps, no clinking silver, only the soft hum of the heater. Leah had told herself it was to find another drawing, another proof. She told herself it was only to make Naomi safer. Inside the drawer, under a folded napkin, she found a photograph. It was small, edges chewed by time. A woman's face filled the picture, kind eyes, a cheek scar Leah had seen on Maria's hand. The woman held a tiny baby wrapped in a blanket. The baby's face was round and asleep. Someone had written on the back in blue ink, "For Maria, my brave girl." Leah's throat closed. She knew the face. She held the photo until the paper warmed. The room felt very close. She turned, and Maria stood in the doorway like she had entered the room without any sound. Maria's mouth was a thin line. Her hands were folded as if to hide something. "Where did you get that?" Leah asked, but she already knew the answer. Maria did not speak for a long time. She came closer and put both hands on Leah's shoulders like a woman steadying herself. "I wanted her to have a life," Maria said. Her voice was hollow and small. "I gave her up when she was a week old." Leah felt the word like a stone. A week old. Naomi. Little Naomi, who hummed and took 3 steps and kept the music box like a heart, had once been held by Maria in a hospital room. Maria told the story in soft pieces. Years ago, she had a son and then a daughter. She was young and poor and scared. Raymond and Claire had come to the small hospital with a quiet man and a stack of papers. They had offered a life Naomi could not have in Maria's world. Maria had signed because she believed it would be better. She had thought she would visit someday. But visits are small things when money and power reshape a life. Maria took the job in this house not because she wanted work, but because she wanted to walk the halls where her daughter slept. She learned to be invisible on purpose. Leah closed her eyes. The house shifted. All the quiet rules made different sounds now. "You never told Jerome?" Leah asked. Her voice sounded thin. If Jerome knew, things might move. If Raymond knew Maria was Naomi's mother, he would react in a dozen ways, and none of them would be gentle. Maria shook her head. "I promised myself to be a shadow. I thought it would hurt less that way. I have watched her from the kitchen doorway for years. I have wiped her tears and tidied her blankets. I hid my face when guests came. I could not." Maria's voice broke. "You could have said something after the watch," Leah said. The accusation was small. It was also true. Maria's silence had kept Naomi at the mercy of the table that night. "I know," Maria said. "I know." She looked at Naomi's little photograph, and then at Leah, with a pleading so large it made Leah dizzy. "I thought if I stayed small, she would be safe. If I shouted, they would take her away. I had nothing to bargain with. I thought if I stayed, I could help her a little. I could leave the box where she could find it. I would steal her a cup of cocoa when no one watched. I was wrong." Leah felt anger and pity, and something like love folded into one knot. Everything was messy. Everything had a cost. "This is huge," Leah said. She was thinking of Aaron and his inhaler, of the coins she counted every month. This news was powerful. It was dangerous, but it could not be ignored. "You could help me. You could tell Jerome about the watch's truth. You could tell him you are Naomi's mother." Maria's hands trembled. "If I tell Jerome, they might fire me. They might sue. They might." She stopped, because she could not finish the long list of ways power can punish a small voice. "But if you don't tell, they will keep hiding her," Leah said. Her voice contained a rough edge now. "They will keep her small for image. Do you want that?" Maria was silent for a long time. Outside, a car passed on the street, and then the sound vanished. Finally, Maria placed the photograph gently back in Leah's hand and said, "I want her to have choices. I don't want her to be a secret, but I am terrified." Leah felt a shift like a tide. This secret gave them something. It gave Leah a new path. It gave Maria a choice that could change everything. It made the house look different, less like a machine, and more like a place made of people with complicated debts. Jerome's footsteps echoed in the corridor, as if on cue. He paused at the door, saw them, and did not enter. For the first time, Leah saw surprise on his face. He had always been the rule, the neutral line. Now he was facing history he had not known. "You must be careful," he said simply, not as a scold, but as a warning. Leah folded the photograph and put it inside her apron, next to the star sticker. Her heart pounded. She had a secret, and secrets are small weapons if you know how to use them. Outside the study, voices rose, Claire and Mr. Grant discussing the specialist plan in low, even tones. Inside, Leah felt the power shift under her feet. She and Maria were new pieces on a board that had always seemed fixed. The house's rules had changed. No one had to know yet, but the balance had moved. If Maria stepped forward, if Jerome chose to listen, Raymond might be forced to explain himself. The revelation could bring rescue or ruin. Leah looked at Naomi's closed door and then at Maria's hands. She remembered the small laugh Naomi had given her when they danced. "You lied to protect her," Leah said, not a question. Maria's eyes filled. "I lied," she whispered. Leah swallowed. The word felt both like a wound and a tool. They were no longer just servants in the same house. They were a quiet line of people who could pull at the seam. The first major twist had been a truth hiding in a drawer. The next move would decide whether the seam opened into sunlight or into something sharp. The house felt softer that week, as if someone had opened a curtain and let in a little light. Leah moved through the rooms like a woman carrying a secret map. She kept the photograph folded in her apron. She kept Naomi's star sticker in her pocket. Each small thing felt like a promise. Jerome surprised her first. He found Leah by the pantry, and for the first time since she started, he waited for her to speak. His face was not the closed mask she was used to. He looked tired and real. "I read your boy's note," he said quietly. "About Aaron." His voice had the thinness of someone who had stayed up late many nights. Leah blinked. She had not shown Jerome that photo. He had not seen Aaron. He had not known about the inhaler. How did he know? "Who told you?" she asked, but her voice was small. Jerome tapped his temple like a man counting. "Maria told me. She said you work 2 jobs. She said things a woman should not keep in her chest." He smiled without humor. "You work hard. I have seen that." Leah felt the heat rise in her chest. She had expected distance. Instead, she got a soft, careful look. He was offering something that looked like help. "Thank you," she said. "It means a lot." Jerome cleared his throat and then lowered his voice. "I can make small changes," he said. "I can move Naomi's schedule so she is not so exposed when the board comes. I can ask the driver to slow down the arrivals. I can watch the dining room." He listed the favors like someone giving away coins he could not afford to lose. Leah felt relief and fear at the same time. Jerome had always been the rule. Now he was the ally. Was he brave or just sensible? Leah could not tell, but his promise felt like a handhold. "Not on my watch," he said suddenly, and the words were blunt and bright. That line lodged in Leah's chest. Jerome's voice had weight. It felt like a shield. But when Jerome walked away, she caught the way his fingers curled around his watch band, as if he clutched safety like a stone. The image made Leah worried in a way she could not name. Maria began to change too. She moved with less fear. She left an extra blanket by Naomi's chair and tucked a note inside Naomi's drawer that said, in a shaky hand, "You are loved." Naomi did not read it in words, but one morning she found the paper and pressed it to her cheek. Leah watched Naomi do this and felt a small trembling joy. Leah gave Naomi 2 small steps of a dance that fit the room. Naomi learned quickly. She liked light and motion. Once after practice, Naomi reached up and touched Leah's face with the softest whisper of a hand. "Thank you," she said in her small way. Leah's throat tightened. How could a child with so little voice say so much? The B-plot, Aaron's illness, tightened the stakes. Leah received a message on a scrap of paper slipped under the staff room door. It was from her neighbor down at the bakery, a woman who looked after Aaron when Leah worked late. The note said, "He coughed in the night. He is better now. I will call if he gets worse." Leah pressed the paper until the edges creased. That night she held the coin she had saved and thought of the inhaler. She counted again. 1 more week, and maybe she could manage. She told herself she was allowed to hope. Mr. Hale returned in a small, quiet way. He came to the kitchen with a thermos and a speech that did not sound like the man who had laughed at the table. He said, "My niece loves music. If you ever want to tell her story, I can try to arrange a small charity event." Maybe Naomi could. He trailed off. The offer was clumsy, but it was real. Leah looked at him and felt a micro twist of gratitude. People change in odd ways. Mr. Hale's apology had not erased the night, but it gave them a fresh face in the crowd. It was not much, but it was a choice that might become a tool. As the week passed, the house began to breathe differently. Naomi learned to step closer to the window. She laughed more. Maria told Leah a single memory, the day she first held the baby Naomi and promised to come back. Her voice broke on the last word. "I thought I did the right thing," she said. "I was wrong." Leah's anger softened into a strange compassion. People did terrible things from fear and love. The line between the two was thin. Jerome called a small meeting of the staff. He did not scold them. He stood at the head of a table like a man who had found faith and wanted to test it. He spoke plainly. He would not let anyone humiliate Naomi again. He would adjust schedules, he would speak up to Claire if needed, and he would protect Maria's job. When he finished, everyone looked relieved. Samuel smiled with a new light on his face. Maria pressed her hand to her chest as if to hold it still. Leah felt hope fill her like a warm glass. Yet there was unease underneath. Jerome's promise carried the weight of consequence. He touched his watchband again when no one watched. His eyes shifted to the study door as if counting exits. For the first time, Leah thought of betrayal, not as a far shadow, but as something close enough to touch. Could a man love his rules more than a child? Would a promise hold when the board called and the money men came back? The thought stayed at the back of Leah's mind like a steady drip. She tried to push it away, to trust him. But the worry grew a quiet root. What would they do if the house chose image over children? The morning the house broke was bright and ordinary. Sun spilled across the marble, and nothing in the light warned Leah what was coming. Leah arrived with a tray and found the staff room full of faces she had come to trust. Samuel looked shaky but hopeful. Maria held the folded photograph like a shield. Jerome stood at the sink, his back to them, his arms stiff. Raymond had called a meeting. Claire sat at the head of the long table, with Mr. Grant beside her. The room smelled like tea and paper. The staff gathered like children called to the principal's office. Jerome cleared his throat and began to speak. He said he had been thinking of Naomi's safety. He said the house must be careful. He said the board was nervous. His voice was steady. He said the most surprising thing. He had told Claire about Maria's past. A small sound left Maria, and it sounded like a broken thing. Leah stepped forward before she thought. Why? She asked. Her hands were empty. Jerome did not meet her eyes. I spoke because I thought it would be best if everything was on the table, he said. They asked me. I could either hide it and risk them deciding later, or be honest. His words were careful. They were honest in a way that cut. Claire's face was thin with a polite calm. We appreciate the honesty, she said. This changes things. Her voice was small and sharp. Mr. Grant opened his folder. He used the word leverage. He used the word risk again. He said Naomi might make donors nervous. He said the family needed to do what was best for Naomi and the company. He suggested a specialist and a private facility for Naomi to stay for evaluation. He suggested Maria's role be reconsidered since she had withheld information. The words floated, clean and awful. Samuel stood up. That is not fair, he said. He told them he had seen the watch hit the floor. He tried to tell the truth again. He asked for Naomi to be treated kindly. He looked like a boy who had decided to be brave. Jerome turned toward him. The angle of the room made his face shadowed. You were told to keep silent, Jerome said, voice flat. We must follow the house rules. He looked at Samuel like a teacher scolding a pupil. We cannot have rumors. A woman from a company, who had only been at 2 dinners, spoke into the quiet. For the child's safety, temporary care away from the public eye is best. Her smile was the same as the one at the table the night of the watch, but now it held knives. Maria's legs trembled. She gripped the photograph until her knuckles white. You told them, she whispered, more to herself than to anyone. After all this time? Jerome's shoulders tightened, as if he had caught a cold. I told them what I thought would protect her, he said. His eyes were quick and dry. I did what I had to. Leah's chest broke open with a sound she could not swallow. The staff watched. Samuel looked like he might run. Mr. Hale, who had come that day to return a thermos, stood stunned. Even Claire's smile loosened for a moment, and a human tremor showed through. Naomi was brought into the room. She walked slowly, her music box in her lap. Her eyes scanned the faces and landed on Maria. For a second, something like recognition crossed Naomi's face. Then the room moved like a wave and people took positions. Claire spoke with the exact calm of someone reading a script. "We will arrange for Naomi to be assessed immediately," she said. "She will be in a private care plan until she is ready for public visits." The plan sounded neat and soft and final. Maria made a sound that was not a sob, but a breaking. She reached for Naomi, as if to take her into her arms. Jerome caught her wrist. Maria's eyes met his, and there was a look Leah had not seen before. Betrayal and blame wrapped in one. "No," Maria said. "You promised me." Jerome's hand loosened. "I promised to protect the house," he replied. "I did what was necessary." Leah felt the floor tilt. The room closed like a lid. Samuel said Naomi had not taken the watch. Mr. Hale tried to speak up. A guest who had watched the table that night cleared his throat and said nothing. Witnesses who had once been kind shrank away. Some said it was for the best. Others said nothing at all. The next hours were a blur. Naomi was led gently to a waiting car. Maria was given a new schedule and an old warning. Samuel was moved to a different post, farther from the family. Leah was told to stay in the house, but avoid the blue room. Jerome's betrayal smelled of necessity in his mouth. He had kept his job. He had kept order. But he had sold the small lights of 2 lives for a clean ledger. Leah's knees gave. She sat on the pantry floor and pressed the photograph to her chest. Maria's face was a map of grief. Naomi's music box sat on the table, silent like a stopped clock. People in the house whispered in the weeks that followed. The guests nodded about decisions and safety. Some praised Raymond for making a hard choice. Mr. Grant sent notes to say how careful and calm everything had been. A neighbor at the bakery told Leah that rumors had started in town, but nothing public yet, nothing loud. The story lived in small mouths. Leah felt betrayed by Jerome more than by the men at the table. She had trusted him like you trust a handrail on a steep stair. He had turned that rail into glass. Samuel's eyes met Leah's one evening, and he mouthed, "I'm sorry." It was the only apology she would get. What would you do if the person you trusted most chose the house over you? Would you forgive him to keep peace? Or would you stand and shout until someone listened? Leah could not eat. The kitchen smelled like lemon and loss. Naomi's music box sat on a shelf where no one would touch it. Maria kept to herself and wrapped the photograph in a clean towel like something that might still break. Samuel moved through the house with his head down. Jerome walked past Leah twice without a word. The house made a quiet sound that felt like nails. That night Leah climbed the narrow stairs to her little room and found a note under the door. It wasn't from the bakery neighbor. It was from the woman who watched Aaron at night. Her handwriting trembled. He coughed more. "If he got worse," she wrote, "take him to the clinic and I will lend you the rest." The words were kind and small. Leah's chest dove. She put her face against the pillow and let the sobs come. She thought of Naomi in a car that smelled like leather and cold air. She thought of Maria's hands on the photograph. She thought of Aaron gasping in the night. Fear pressed into her like weight. For a while she sat there and let the fear name itself. It was ugly and honest. Then anger came after it, sharp and hot. Leah had been careful for so long. She had counted coins and swallowed pride. She had believed small kindnesses would add up. Now something had been taken from her and Maria and a child who had done nothing wrong. The fear changed into a steady heat. She folded the photograph, smoothed Naomi's drawing, and put both in her apron. She dusted off the music box and held it in her hands until the dancer inside shivered. A new idea was not a lightning bolt. It was a slow, certain thought. Hiding the truth would not help anyone. She had to make a risk that mattered. Leah knocked on Samuel's door. He opened just enough for her to slip a note under. It asked him to meet near the garden at noon. He came, eyes bright with something like hope. "I'm nervous," he said, "but I saw it. I'll say it again." "Good," Leah said. Her voice was small but steady. "We need witnesses, not just feelings." names, times, where the watch fell, the drawing, Maria's photo, your note to Jerome. We need a story that sounds like the truth. Samuel nodded. He fumbled in his pocket and gave her a scrap he had written the night the watch fell. It had exact words, the time, and the place. Leah pressed the paper into her palm like a coin. Next, she found Mr. Hale. He was sitting on a low bench by the kitchen door, sipping tea. He looked tired in a way that fit things that had been hidden for a long time. Leah told him everything with quick sentences. She did not ask permission to be brave. She asked for help. Mr. Hale surprised her. He did not promise the moon. Instead, he said, I can reach a few people. A friend at the local charity. A woman who runs a small news column about unfair things. She hates silence. He tapped his knee like someone counting small favors. Leah felt a twist in her stomach. Bringing in strangers could be dangerous. It could also be the only way to make the house answer in the open. If we speak, she said, they could take Aaron's bread from under us. They could fire me and Maria. Her hands shook. Mr. Hale did not flinch. Then we do it smart, he said. We gather what we can. We give it to people who will not name names until we are ready. We make it about the truth, not the loudness. Leah thought of Aaron sleeping without his medicine. That thought narrowed everything. We can raise money, too, she said. My neighbor said she'd help. A small drive, a note in the bakery window. If I can get the inhaler paid for, I can breathe. The plan felt practical. It felt like a rope she could climb. That evening, Leah sat with Maria in the pantry. Maria trembled like a leaf. If I tell them everything, she whispered, they will take Naomi away for good. They will say I am unstable. I will lose my job. I will have nothing. Leah folded Maria's hands into her own. She remembered the way Naomi had looked at her when they danced. Not this time, Leah said. The words were a small stick of steel. Maria's eyes widened. Tell me what to do, she said. Leah drew a simple map. Samuel would give his written account to the woman at the column. Mr. Hale would pass a note to his friend at the charity and see if they could quietly sponsor Naomi's care if needed. Leah would post a short, anonymous message in a local message board, only facts and the drawing and the photograph, asking for witnesses about the night at the dinner. She would keep the post simple, honest, and careful. Be brave, Samuel said in a small voice. Be smart. Leah breathed and felt a new thing settle in her chest. It was resolved, but not the loud kind. It was the steady kind that keeps you moving when the house is against you. She thought of Aaron, of Naomi, of Maria folding paper into heart shapes to hide their fear. She thought of Jerome's knife-turn words, and of the way men in suits tidy truth into files. If she lost her job, she told herself, she would sleep poorly and ask neighbors for help. She would still stand up. If she saved Naomi, she would have done the right thing. That night she counted coins again, but with a different rhythm. The plan was risky. It would take patience and small courage. It would need witnesses and careful voices. It would need people to choose truth over comfort. Leah tucked the music box under her apron and went to the bakery to put a small note in the window asking for help with medicine. It was honest and short. A white napkin said, "For Aaron, urgent inhaler. Help is much appreciated. Leave donations in the jar." She pressed the napkin to the glass and walked back to the house. The city buzzed. The house slept. Leah felt the new plan like a flame she could hold in both hands. Would it be enough? Leah planned the smallest stage she could make. They would not storm the study. They would not shout in the dining room. They would bring proof to people who could make noise for them, a local columnist who hated silence, a small charity that helped children, and Mr. Hale, who agreed to stand where he could not be ignored. The morning of the meeting, Leah felt like she was holding her breath and counting to 10. Samuel handed her a folded paper with the exact time and placed the watch had fallen. Maria brought the photograph and Naomi's drawings. Mr. Hale carried his thermos and wore a face that had decided to be honest. They met at a small community room above a library. The columnist, Ms. Arif, had a camera and a steady voice. She listened with the kind of attention that makes people honest. "We need facts," she said, "not anger." Leah liked that. She did not want anger. She wanted truth. Samuel read what he remembered. He spoke with the trembling of someone who had learned courage late. He said where he stood. He said the watch bounced and hit Naomi's knee. He said the guests laughed and no one checked. When he finished, his hands shook less. Mr. Hale then did something that changed everything. He took his phone from his pocket, and with a face that looked older than his years, he pressed play. The clip was short, a few seconds from the dining room corridor camera. The watch slips off the table, bounces, and lands by Naomi's foot because a guest unknowingly nudged it with his leg. The room held the seconds like a glass. The clip was proof in light and motion. Ms. Arif's camera caught the play button and the faces. She did not gasp. She only set the phone down and said, "This is enough to ask questions." Leah felt hope like cold water. But she knew hope alone would not move a boardroom. They needed a file that would force Raymond and his advisors to answer. That was when Jerome surprised them all. Weeks earlier, he had told Claire what he believed was best. At the time, it had saved him a hard choice. Now Jerome walked into the library room with a heavy folder under his arm. He did not look like a man seeking applause. He looked like a man who had carried too much weight. "I kept something," he said. His voice was thin. "I told them what I thought protected the house. I kept the original adoption papers. I kept hospital receipts and a note that shows how Naomi left the hospital." He opened the folder slowly. He put the papers on the table, like someone laying down a confession. The papers were messy and human. They showed signatures and dates. They showed that Maria had been offered money, had been rushed to sign while tired and scared, and had little time to read. There was a note from a clerk that suggested pressure from the family's representative. The legal language was cruel, but the meaning was clear. Naomi's transfer had happened under pressure, not a calm choice. Leah's hands shook. Maria's mouth opened and closed like she might cry. Samuel pressed his fist to his chest. Mr. Hale's eyes filled. Jerome's second move was the real twist. He said the words no one expected. "I was wrong," he said. "I thought I was protecting the house. I was protecting comfort and not people. I will go with this to the board." Everyone froze. Jerome had been the one who told Claire. He had been the man who kept order. Now he was handing them the match that could burn their careful plans. Ms. Arif called a small, careful meeting with a local legal aid lawyer she knew. The lawyer read the papers and said plainly, "There's enough here to demand an independent review." She explained how the charity could fund a safe, home-based plan while the review happened. She asked Raymond and his team to step back from any immediate removal of Naomi. The news did not explode that day. Power does not always fall at once. But the lawyer sent a letter. The columnist put a short, factual piece online with the clip and the papers. People in the town read it. Donors at the charity called. Mr. Grant's careful plans began to wobble. Raymond called a meeting. Claire sat beside him like a shield. He looked older in the light. The board read the lawyer's note and the public reaction. The room smelled of hot coffee and panic. At the meeting, Ms. Arif and the lawyer and a charity representative were present by request. They asked for a pause on any move that would take Naomi from the house immediately. They asked that Maria's relationship be honored while a real plan for Naomi's care was made. They asked for an independent child psychologist, not a quick removal. Raymond listened. He folded the papers and put them down. For the first time, Leah saw him unsteady. He reached for a line he had used before, reason as armor, but the armor had holes. "You put my family on display," Claire whispered when the lawyer explained boundaries and ethics and consent. Her voice trembled with fear. Jerome stood and spoke in a small voice. "I put the house first, and I failed the child," he said. "Not today." It was a short, cold line, and it hit like a blade. The board paused. The lawyer recommended a temporary plan. Naomi would remain in the house with a qualified, independent therapist to come each day. Maria would not be removed from her job. An independent panel would review the adoption papers and circumstances. The charity agreed to fund the therapy and to support Naomi's needs. The columnist promised to keep the story factual and protect identities where needed. It was not a perfect victory. It was slow and messy and corporate. But it was also a real turn of power. The house that had hidden a child would now be monitored. People who had been comfortable found the ground shift beneath them. Later that week, back in the blue room, Naomi opened her music box and turned its tiny dancer. The melody filled the air like a small bell. Leah bent down and whispered, "Dance with me." Naomi looked up, and this time she did not wait for permission. She took Leah's hand. The room held its breath, and then let it out like a laugh. The music kept them steady. Outside, the charity jar at the bakery had enough for Aaron's inhaler. The neighbor called to say she had the rest. Leah cried and laughed in the same breath. People had lost comforts and reputations. People had been forced to look. Maria and Naomi had not been taken away. They had been seen. Leah did not know the future. She only knew that for one bright, strange day the small things had become enough to bend a big thing. What would you do if the truth was sitting on your table? Would you leave it there, or would you open the folder and read? The house was quieter in a different way now. It was the kind of quiet that felt like people were listening. Naomi sat by the window with the music box on her lap. The tiny dancer spun, and the melody fell soft. Leah watched her and felt a weight lift that had been pressing her chest for weeks. The music box was no longer a secret. It was a bridge. An independent therapist came each morning. She sat with Naomi on the blue rug and drew pictures with crayons. Naomi learned to tell small things with her hands and a few words. The therapist wrote notes the adults had to read. They could not simply file the child away anymore. The charity paid for the visits. The lawyer wrote a slow letter. The board opened a review. It did not fix everything at once, but it made the house answerable. Maria returned to work with a steadier step. She kept the folded photograph in a drawer, but sometimes she would take it out and press her thumb on the corner. Leah noticed those moments and said nothing. Maria's face softened. She began to bring a second mug for Naomi in the mornings, steaming and sweet. Once she hummed a part of the music box melody without meaning to, and Naomi smiled like a sun. Jerome lost a small part of his power. The board could not ignore that he had hidden papers and then told the family without enough thought. He was reprimanded and given new oversight. He did not lose his job, but his shoulders were straighter as if he had put down a heavy bag. Sometimes he caught Leah in the hall and gave a short nod. It was not an apology that filled the room, but it was a promise to be better. Raymond was quieter. He stood in front of the board and answered questions. He met with the lawyer and listened. He walked into the blue room once and sat on the far chair. He looked at Naomi and said, "I am sorry." His voice was small and real. Naomi did not look at him at first. She wound the music box and then let the tiny dancer spin. The apology was a step. It did not erase the past, but it made it possible to walk forward. Mr. Grant was moved to a new position that did not deal directly with public image. The company found a way to keep donors calm without hiding people. It was messy and practical and ordinary. People who had felt safe lost a certain comfort. Some lost more than comfort. But the truth was no longer a thing you could tuck behind curtains. Outside, the bakery jar had held enough coins for Aaron's inhaler and a little more. Leah took the package home in the hush of late afternoon. Aaron opened the medicine and coughed less that night. He climbed onto Leah's knee and showed her a drawing of a rocket he had made at the bakery. Leah pressed her face to his hair and laughed through tears. She had been afraid they would lose everything. Instead, the town had given them a small breathing room. The music box stayed on Naomi's shelf, but it changed sides. It was no longer a tool that held her composure when adults looked away. It belonged to memory and to choice. Leah wrapped the star sticker and put it in a small envelope. She handed it to Naomi on a morning when the sunlight cut the room in strips. "For when you want to remember," Leah said. Naomi pressed the sticker to the envelope with 2 careful fingers. She kept it in her pocket for a day and then stuck it under a page in the therapist's drawing book. The act looked like trust. Leah thought often about the list she had made when she first slept above the bakery. Her plans had been small and brave. Some of them had failed. Some had worked. She had lost sleep and gained strange allies. She had been betrayed and then found that the man who betrayed her could turn and bear the truth. She had learned that people are both brittle and kind. There were quiet punishments and small reckonings. Some donors said they would not support the company now. Some men in suits drew new lines on old maps. But the things that mattered most were here. Naomi's laugh, Maria's steady hands, Aaron's calm breaths, and Leah's small coins in the jar that paid for a new inhaler. Leah kept working at the house. She kept cleaning and sweeping and sometimes dancing in the pantry when no one watched. The last line of her list was the simplest. Keep seeing people, not seeing them like objects. Seeing them is like living. It was a rule she kept even when the world asked for contracts and numbers. One afternoon, as sunlight poured across the blue rug, Naomi wound the box and let the tiny dancer go. She looked at Leah and, without a big pause, said, "Dance with me." Leah smiled all the way through. She took Naomi's hand and stepped into the small circle they had practiced. For a moment the house was full of footfalls and melody and the sound of 2 people choosing each other. What will you do when you see someone hidden? Will you walk by and count the coins in your pocket? Or will you stop and touch a hand? Think about that. Tell me, what did you feel when they asked you to dance? Leah did not have answers for every cost. She only had this: a child who was seen, a mother who kept her job, a brother who breathed easier, and a quiet house learning to listen. The music box spun until the dancer stopped, and for once no one hurried to close the lid. Share your thoughts in the comments below. If you enjoyed this story, don't forget to like it, share it with your friends, and subscribe to the channel for more meaningful stories. Thank you for watching, and see you in the next video.